break, Mateja Kuka from Croatia is going to tell us about the mountain of Učka in Croatia, titled Unravelling the Mountain Layer by Layer, Heritage Interpretation for a Story That Lasts. Now, Mateja is an art historian and anthropologist who joined the interdisciplinary team at Muses in 2018. She found her interest in the practical protection of cultural and natural heritage through interpretation and sustainable use, often with the approach of contemporary curatorial practices. She is a member of the association SFIUS, Dragudit, Interpret Croatia and Interpret Europe. And so I wonder how many of you were at the last conference in Sarajevo, our last live conference, sorry, where one of the tours was visiting the mountain of Visočica in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I was impressed by how you could treat a mountain almost as a personality, as a world in its own right. And I'm hoping that Mateja will give us lots of insights into their immersive multimedia interpretive experience they've built around the Poklon Visitor Centre in the Učka Nature Park. I'm sure she will. We often talk about the importance of an authentic experience, experience actually being in the place, which is in its own way multi-layered, intense, multi-sensory. And in Mateja's description of her visitor experience, it reminded me actually of a real experience where you have many layers, you have much sensory input, and it's a very intensive, almost overwhelming experience, a very content-rich experience. So it seemed to me maybe this is a parallel, a multimedia experience based on a typical outdoor experience, but we'll let you tell us all about it, Mateja. So over to you now.
Thank you, Angus, for the introduction. I will now share my screen. Sorry, I have some problems with screen sharing. Let's see. Sorry, it seems like I have some technical issues.
Do you have the share screen button at the bottom?
Yes, I do, but for some reason I'm not able to share my screen.
Okay, I think Anya's probably, Yanya's working on it. We'll just wait a moment. Are you there, Yanya?
Yes, I'm here, but the settings are set so that the panelist can share screen. Mateja is panelist. Mm-hmm. So I will make you into co-host, Mateja. Maybe that will help.
Okay. And I also have the correct sharing settings at my computer, so I don't know what's wrong.
So what sort of response are you getting when you press share screen?
I'm not able to see the presentation, and
have you got it open on your desktop?
Yes, I have it open.
Mateja, the only thing I can think of is if you send it to me really quickly, if it's not too big of a file, and I can maybe try to share it.
Yes, that will be great.
You have one of my emails probably.
Can you please say it, Janja Sivec at
Janja.sivec@interpret-europe.net.
Oh, sorry. Can you put it in the chat box, please? The presentation is on its way. I hope you can open the link. And I will start, even though I don't have the presentation.
Sorry about this, Mateja.
No problem, no problem. Technical issues happen. We all came across some during this year and a half of living and working remotely. For a start, thank you, Angus, for the introduction. And I would like to say thank you to Interpret Europe for organizing the conference on this very important and interesting topic of the sustainability in tourism. And also I would like to thank for the opportunity to participate in today's topic, value-based interpretation in tourism. With my presentation entitled Unravelling the Mountain Layer by Layer, Heritage Interpretation for a Story That Lasts, I will present our approach to working with local communities in the process of interpretive planning and content development. My focus will be on the permanent exhibition in the Poklon Visitor Centre in Učka Nature Park. Sorry, Janja is just telling me that the presentation didn't come. So I will forward it once again. So you will see my slides after the presentation starts on your screen, but I will continue. I will talk about what I wanted to talk about. First, I wanted to talk about what Učka means to me. In 2017, I participated in a Drystone International Student and Young Professionals volunteer camp in Petribišća that was organized by NGO Dragodit. This heritage camp was held in an abandoned Drystone seasonal village, Petribišća, on the Učka mountain, and during a 10-day-long workshop, participants got introduced with some of the Drystone basics and fixing straw roofs. This will be more impressive with the photos, which are coming right up. Besides from learning about traditional building techniques, we enjoyed our leisure time. We went hiking at dawn to watch the sunrise over Učka and observed wild horses on the edge of our base camp. Little did I know that only a year later, all practical and emotional experience would come in handy when I joined Muse's team. Učka wasn't my first project with Muses, but soon I started working on the content development for the Poklon Visitor Centre, Nature Park, Učka. My motivation in this process of content development came from my experience that Učka Mountain always offers transformative experiences. At this point, I would show you a few photographs from the camp, a building site during a lunch break, and volunteers fixing the straw roof. And also some photos of the landscape. So since 2018, I am working with Muses, a creative team for heritage interpretation, cultural tourism and management. Muses are working with local communities, and local communities are the center of Muses' work. The main pillars of interpretive planning principles are the needs and attitudes of local people towards heritage. Yay, here's my presentation. Okay, so this is about the camp, Dresden camp, and these are the photos I was talking about. And who are we? Here we are. Muses cover a multi-perspective approach to interpretive planning. Our team includes museologists and heritage managers, art historians, anthropologists, and cultural anthropologists. Our mission, next slide, please, thank you. Through teamwork and collaboration with the local communities, we create hand-tailored and meaningful experiences for change. That is our mission statement. Next slide, please. Today, I'm going to talk about the interpretive planning process and exhibition implementation, more specifically content development of the permanent exhibition in the Nature Park Učka. Next slide. For start, I will just show you a snippet of the permanent exhibition, just to keep you intrigued and focused on my story. Next slide. The Učka Nature Park includes the territory of Učka Mountain and a part of the hilly plateau Chicharia, and is located along the North Adriatic coast on one of the northern points of the Mediterranean, connecting the Istrian Peninsula and the continental part of Croatia. Učka has rich habitats such as meadows and other anthropogenic inhabitants, and is home to a vast number of endemic, endangered, and protected plant and animal species. So, next slide. Interpretive planning. How did it all begin? For start, let's see how the interpretive planning process came to be. In 2011, the Croatian Ministry of Environment and Nature started implementing the EU Natura 2000 integration project. Natura 2000 is a network of core breeding and resting sites for rare and threatened species and some rare natural habitat types which are protected in their own right. It stretches across all EU countries, both on land and at sea. The aim of the network is to ensure the long-term survival of Europe's most valuable and threatened species and habitats listed under both the Birds Directive and Habitats Directive. Croatia's EU accession process required an expanded ecological network beyond the core national and nature parks to be designed and aligned with EU nature protection legislation. Croatia faced capacity constraints in gaining access to EU grants, funds, and nature protection. The annual cost of maintaining the existing network lies within each member state, being responsible for financing its own component. To help meet these costs, EU members are eligible to draw from a variety of EU grants programs that support co-financing investments to operate and maintain the network. A lack of infrastructure and quality services constrained the growth potential of less visited parks while compounding their conservation challenges. The project was financed by World Bank loan, and it was the first project in Croatia to systematically approach interpretive planning. What were the objectives of the project? The overall objectives were to help national parks, nature parks, and county public institutions for management of protected natural values to implement a European ecological network Natura 2000 objectives in investment programs, and also to strengthen capacity for biodiversity monitoring and EU compliant reporting, and introduce programs that involved a wide group of stakeholders in Natura 2000 network management. Activities which are proposed in these projects were ecological network investments, ecological network data systems, and ecological network capacity building. In terms of what our team of creatives did, the interdisciplinary team of creatives developed 30 different interpretation plans over a 3-year period. Implementation documentation has been prepared for development of 8 visitor centers, 5 interpretation and education centers, and 1 reception and 1 education center. In addition to the indoor visitor infrastructure, outdoor infrastructure was also developed for some educational trails, a mobile application, and also outdoor signaling and interpretation system for Croatian network of protected natural areas with a unique visual identity, Croatian Park. This project marks the beginning of the interpretation of natural heritage in Croatia. Thank you. One of the project results was the creation of the visual identity of the project. Here you can see old visual identities of national and nature parks in Croatia, and on the next slide you can see the new visual identity for Croatian parks and rangers, which were created through this project. Next slide, please. The interpretive planning process for Učka began in 2013 and continued until 2015. In this photo, you can see the location of the Poklon Visitor Centre, as it were at that time before the refurbishment, the rebuilding. Next slide. The EU Natura 2000 integration project was a top-down initiative and oriented towards building capacities and infrastructure for nature interpretation. We knew that the local community involvement is the key to sustainability of the project and centers developed through this project. So I will borrow Peter Davis's words that kind of summarize what we thought as guidelines. What do small local communities value most about the environment, the features of their natural and cultural landscape for which they share communal ownership and responsibility? That was the question we'd like to ask ourselves. The key principles of heritage interpretation process was local community involvement. We followed some of the key eco-museum principles, paying particular attention to the relationship between places, communities, and their heritage to explore the idea of how intangible and tangible heritage resources contribute to the spirit of place. In the picture, you can see the mind mapping workshop with Nature Park employees conducted in 2013. I think you can see here a familiar face. You can see Dragana Lucia Ratković-Ajdemir, our company's director and founder. Next slide, thank you. Our team was consisted of creatives, different creatives, which offered solutions for heritage interpretation, product design, and IT multimedia design, graphic design, and lighting design. At this point, the exhibition layout and media have been developed. Fast forward to exhibition implementation. Next slide, thank you. Within the Učka 360 project, the visitor center at the Poklon mountain pass was built and equipped, along with 4 other objects in the Nature Park Učka. Furthermore, new innovative programs based on the natural and cultural values were developed, while the existing educational programs of the Učka Nature Park were developed and expanded. The project was funded through the EU operational program Competitiveness and Cohesion 2014-2020. In this phase, our team, next slide, thank you. Our team expanded to include various artists and other professionals beyond the core team of the co-authors. Next slide, thank you. What our team did was content development for the exhibition, and the goal of exhibition planning process was to encourage the empowerment of local communities so they can identify and take control of their own heritage resources. We saw the members of the local community as co-creators of the permanent exhibition content. Buzzword that was often repeated during this conference is story sharing. We invited them to share their stories about heritage. Museum's team scope of work for The Muse's team scope of work for content development included writing and developing art briefs, engaging artists and monitoring the production of the audiovisual and textual content, and also working with experts, biologists, geologists, ethnologists, language experts, and so on. As a curiosity, I will mention that the exhibition includes more than 1,000 illustrative audiovisual media, photos, illustration, and archival photos. When possible, wildlife and landscape photographs were made by local photographers who already took a great inspiration in the Učka mountain, which resulted in capturing the unique scenery and offered unique results from people who knew the territory. We relied on both technological skills and expertise in capturing the best motifs, but also relied in personal archives of our collaborating photographers to equip the exhibition with the best content. Here are some of the results. This process, the collaboration with local photographers, resulted in their acknowledgement of the project. We also witnessed their continuing praising and sharing of their photos on social networks, photos of the exhibitions and locations where their photos are embedded. Yes, but also one important aspect was intangible cultural heritage practices. People are the main bearers of the phenomena of intangible heritage, so the values they see and associate with their heritage are more visible here. And it is in them that the keys to our interpretive process lie. The exhibition panel says, meet the people who made Učka and Chicharia their home. Enjoy bits of the tradition we inherited from them. So, as previous panelist Anna Wilson said, talked about how they try to inbuild stories about locals, about humans in the exhibition. The next few slides will tell you about our experience in the process. Here are some organizations and individuals who helped us in the process. NGO Ognjišće is a local organization that was founded by residents of the Lovran region in order to collect, preserve, and present the ethnographic material of their region. NGO Ognjišće participated in the filming of culinary videos that are presented in a multimedia setting. 5 recipes were filmed for the interpretation in the permanent exhibition. And on the next slide, you can see the women using traditional cooking tools. On the next slide, you can see another behind the scenes moment. Members of NGO Dragodit, the organization behind the first story of my presentation, which was my participating in a Dresden workshop, also participated in the filming of a short documentary about the experience of working in the abandoned village of Petrobišća. Because of COVID-19, the workshop was almost not held, but luckily the workshop was held and we were not deprived of the authentic experience of the workshop. Next slide, thank you. So this slide shows you a screenshot from the short documentary video that was also presented in the exhibition. And on the next slide, you can see Alexander Čendak on, his charcoal pile. Here you can see a building of a charcoal pile by a local Alexander Čendak. He is one of the last charcoal burners in Croatia. You can see on the next slide also a screenshot from a short documentary video in which he is talking, in which we follow Alexander through the process of selecting the wood, charcoal pile building, burning the wood, and then packing the charcoal. Next slide, thank you. You can continue until the next. Resul Maliki is from a family of shepherds that moved from the Shar mountain to Učka, where they make famous sheep cheese. They have a family business based on this. And he also was storyteller or speaker for one short documentary film about traditional shepherds and their work on the Učka mountain. Also on the next slide, you can see screenshot from the film, and we also follow his day as a shepherd. I mean, he's a shepherd. He's not guiding sheep, but we follow his colleague through the day. On the next slide, you can see photo from the exhibition scenography. It is called The Sounds of the Mountain, this exhibit. And here you can listen to endangered Vlahen Jayane language, the Eastern Romanian language spoken in a few villages on the Učka mountain. You can listen to a few common phrases by speakers of the language, which counts less than 300 speakers. Mr. Robert Doricic was our language advisor, and he found locals who wanted to make audio for the exhibition. So for the conclusion, we see local communities as caretakers of heritage, but also as co-creators of our projects, which is the key to sustainability of heritage interpretation projects. We develop close relationships, trust and mutual respect with communities and people with whom we develop a heritage interpretation project together. Učka took almost a decade in the making. One of the downfalls of this long process is that some people develop distrust towards the project. They contribute in one phase, in the initial phase, and think that the data information was somehow misused, but it was not. So some people opted not to contribute to the process further on. My question for the audience is if you could please leave a comment about similar situations you were in and what did you do regarding that? Anyhow, this approach offers better understanding and gaining respect for heritage, but also new values that rise from its foundations. The heritage messages told in the exhibition invite visitors to engagement, curiosity, mutual understanding, and exchange, in order to better understand the world around them. In the next few slides, you can see a couple of photos that show the exhibition scenography that mostly includes stories about protected animal and plant species, habitats, but also people, which you heard in this presentation. Thank you. Sorry, I rushed through the presentation because of the technical issue at the beginning. Hope you can forgive me, but these things happen. As it was, I worked from home for 1.5 years, and I know about these technical issues that they can happen. So that's it for me. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, you had a little bit less time than you should have had, Mateja.
That's okay. I rushed through, and I hope I get everything.
Lovely presentation, groovy exhibition. Something I find really exciting about this project, which is relevant to, I think, everyone's work, wherever they are, is how you manage to unlock local talent. I mean, I think in any community, whether it's a village in Bulgaria or a valley in a glen in Scotland, I'm pretty sure there's so much talent going to waste. You got natural born historians, linguists, cooks, carers, craftsmen, guides, storytellers, just waiting for the opportunity. Maybe in that time they're busy looking after sheep or driving a bus or something, but maybe this is one of the keys to local involvement and motivation, that you discover where the talent lies, and if someone is good at cooking, then generally they want to cook for other people and to show what they can do. And if someone loves language, then they'll be happy to share their love and their feeling for the language. So actually harnessing local talent, I think, is a wonderful thing to be able to do in a project which maybe doesn't have a lot of funding, but is interested in getting local people involved.